One of the biggest crises right now that the Catholic Church is facing, Pope Francis issued a document called Fiducia Supplicans, which essentially what it does is it authorizes or it gives permission to actually give a blessing to individuals that are couples of the same sex. Same sex couples can actually go up to a priest right now and look for individual blessings. So there's a lot going back and forth with that. You know what I mean? And I tell you, this is a very significant situation. This is something that can actually create separations. Again, you know what I mean? This is something that unfortunately, the Catholic Church has gone through many separations. You know what I mean? The first one, obviously, the most significant is what happens with the Greek Orthodox. And then obviously after Martin Luther comes around, you know what I mean? That triggers a whole Protestant movement. Today is very significant. And now you have other things between the traditionalist side of the church, that all they arguing for, guys, all they arguing for is we don't have the right to change things that have been around for 1800, 1900 years. You know what I mean? We're talking about once the church has started to formalize certain things, the Catholic Church has started to uphold certain traditions, you know what I mean? And said, in many cases, why is it that the Catholic Church doesn't have a female priest per se, right? There really is no specific explanation that comes either from the Bible or anywhere else. It's just the church doesn't have the right to change that tradition that has been around. So that's something they call the deposit of faith, and they call the magisterium, right? So these are things that they got to be guarded and protected jealously, So we knew that Pope Francis coming in was going to be probably somebody that was going to be a lot more in the liberal side than any other pope ever. And so, but it's very painful to see, first of all, that is a crisis that's being actually triggered by a pope. Usually it's the people that are part of the church or around the church that are forced, trying to create a scenario that is, but it's usually not generated by the church, by the pope. You know what I mean? They try, all the people that are trying to create a scenario that would be against the principles of the church. So this document, Fiducia Supplicans, what it says is, that essentially you can bless people of the same sex that are looking for a blessing, and immediately this triggered a lot of controversy. You know what I mean? The cardinal who is explaining the purpose of the content of how this doesn't go against church tradition is Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez, who is the prefect of the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith. Essentially, this is if you want to call it, the department that is precisely there to uphold and guard the doctrine of the faith of the Catholic Church. Now, he had to come up already with another sequence of documents explaining why this shouldn't be controversial, but this is laughable. Imagine me doing something wrong and then telling you, don't take it as something wrong, right? Even if it still is considered wrong, right? And so, guys, whether it's popular or not, the position of the church has been consistent for many years on terms of this type of blessing, and there's two fundamental reasons. You know what I mean? One of them is the argument is that anything that can potentially compromise life. What do I mean by that? Um, my wife and I have children. When a union takes place where there is no possibility for the procreation of children, that is a big deal for the Catholic Church. The second one is, yes, it is truth that Jesus Christ met with everybody, including prostitutes, including everybody, but at the end, tax collectors and all of that. But at the end, he also, especially in the case of the woman that was being accused of adultery, right? There's a passage in the Bible tells the story. This woman is being accused of adultery. They come to say, master, teacher, what do you say? According to our law of, the law that we have from Moses, we're supposed to stone her to death, you know what I mean? And so, but at the end, not only that he makes everybody go away and ask the question, where are the people that are accusing you? He said, they are left. He said, okay, so, and he said, well, then go. And here's the very important instruction. It says, go and sin no more. It's not just a question. He said, it's almost like saying, I forgive you, but don't do this again. You know what I mean? And so that's another principle that the church says. It's like, listen, when somebody does something wrong, the person have to have the ability to be forgiven, but you got to remind that person that they have to stop sinning, right? Now, very specific set of rules. You know what I mean? If you're gonna bless the individual, it's the individual. It's not supposed to come across as you blessing a union. It's not supposed to be done on any specific holy, meaning not done by the altar, not done by. It's not supposed to look like a marriage is taking place. The Catholic Church is very clear about the fact that there are unions. They just don't want to redefine what the concept of marriage happens to be. Listen, this is a controversial argument. It's one of those things that has been around and has created a lot of division. But at the end of the day, again, the church is not there to make a popular decision. The church are there to make a decision according to scriptures and according to what the tradition of the church has been. This is probably one of the most critical situations in crisis that the church is facing right now, because is a more traditional conservative side that is saying we're not okay with this. And so now bishops are coming up and saying we're not going to participate on this. And so that goes against the hierarchy structure of the church. It puts it at risk. You know what I mean? And that's very, very dangerous. So I don't know if you want to take an opinion on this, or,
Yeah.
or what
So
you think.
for me, by the way, I grew up Catholic, and it was one of the biggest conflicts, and it's been one of the biggest conflicts that I've had. I guess in my life, right? As somebody that grew up Catholic, understanding that as a gay lesbian individual, right? I'm very clear and I'm very well aware that there's I'm not in alignment, let's call that, according to the rules with the Catholic Church. And so with that, by the way, I don't need it. I don't need the blessing of any priest in order for me to feel validated or validate my relationship or the choices that I make. So I don't understand the move that the Catholic Church is making there. What I do understand is the fact that, or what I do see is the fact that it is creating a lot of commotion in other areas, and I'm expecting the church to be the enforcer of rules, not the one that just want to keep up with trends. Because if it were keeping up with trends for a little while, and by the way, in no way I'm saying my relationship is a trend. All I'm saying is that I doesn't need to be valid. It's two very different things. So it's just to be able to jump on the bandwagon of saying, hey, we're cool with that too. It's a flexibility that I believe is gonna turn off more people from going into the faith, just because they're saying, so what are the values and principles? What is it that I'm going for and after? So I don't speak for every gay person by any means. I don't. My views are very different than most, but I don't think that anybody is really looking for validation specifically from the Catholic Church, for that matter. So I don't understand that move, and I don't think it's a good move for the Pope. That's just my personal.
What you're saying is extremely important, though. But you're saying it's extremely important for the following reason. Do you agree with communism?
No.
Right. So imagine that you were invited to participate in a leadership position on something that you don't agree with. How would
No,
would you
I
even
can't.
agree to be a part?
No,
Right.
I can't.
That is the point. The point is, the distinction that you just made right now. Hey, I understand what that set of rules happens to be. Some people even go to the extent of calling that a divine set of rules. I'm willing to do without, because I'm very clear about my position, where I'm at. And so, but I'm going to be respectful of that. And I'll do without. It's that simple. You know what I mean? And so, but what's actually happening is you actually do have a group of people that are trying to say, no, 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 no. We not only that we don't want to do without, we want to force the hand that changes the rules, so that even if I'm not a communist, I'm gonna go in there and put myself in a role of leadership, because essentially that's what's moving and what's taking place through the church. To, even though I don't agree with the position, I want to force myself into that position, even though it tells me that I shouldn't even. And guys, I have this argument so many years with somebody that was literally, I knew for a fact, was playing a role of leadership. And I'm saying, how can you? I said, it goes. If your position is against the church, I said, and you know that that's not a position that. Why would you continue to believe that it's okay to play a role of leadership when what you're doing goes against the position? Like, if you don't agree with the position, then you can say so. Like, everybody, it's a free country, you can say it exactly, and
Right.
you can take other choices, but not to somewhere somehow infiltrate yourself to. And essentially that's what it looks like, an infiltration within the Catholic Church.
Um,
Alexia, you were.
yeah, I was gonna say that. So unfortunately, I feel like that's exactly what's happening, where people believe in getting as much power as possible under any circumstances, no matter how they can do it. And unfortunately we see a lot of this happening. So I don't agree with the fact that the church is doing what it's doing, but I don't think it's gonna stop. I think it's gonna get worse. I think that we're going to keep on moving in a direction where you're going to see they're being more lenient to things that goes against what they've represented for thousands of years. I see that continuing to happen. And not only do I see that continuing to happen, I see them forcing everybody else who's not on board with this. You're not gonna like what's gonna come next. Why? Because at the end of the day, I remember even when it was like, even with same-sex marriage was happening here, right, which I have zero issues with, but then it started becoming an issue in my brain where now they started putting other people, like, you can get arrested or you can now lose your position as a pastor if you don't now say, I'm going to do this. You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So then the separation of church and state happened a long time ago, and then so still a battle where the state or the government is saying, no, we have more power than the church, and we're going to prove it to you in this many ways. So I don't see it being good in any way, shape, or form, but I don't see it stopping either. I think it's going to continue to
Yeah,
happen.
and again, to the point that you're making, you know what I mean? Like, just so that you know, even when I process something through different sets of lens. You know what I mean? The first one is, what is the religious position from that perspective, right? And then the second one is a secular lens. You know what I mean? Which, and the secular side is like, again, when you're talking about having any issues with anybody that is has same-sex unions and stuff like that, and again, you're talking about relationships that we have witnessed. You know what I mean? Extremely healthy, extremely loyal, extremely 1,000 times even more functional than this. And then you're saying, man, something have to be done to secure a set of rights. You know what I mean? So those things I have absolutely no issues with. But from the religious side, the one thing that I want you to know, guys, is that a lot of the times when I ask myself the question is, do I have the right to have an opinion against it, or do I have the right to have an opinion for it? What is the position that has been given? Because the positive faith is something that has been given to us. You know what I mean? It's not something that I can readjust and condition and make it fit to my necessity according to that moment. You know what I mean? And so, but this is a big issue. This is not a simple issue. And in addition to that, the today
Can I
three.
ask you?
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, and then I do want to ask you a question.
the three-third majority that is needed to choose one pope. You know what I mean? Out of the college of cardinals, as of this moment, most of them have been elected or chosen or named cardinals by Pope Francis. So it's more than likely what you're looking at right now. It's going to be very difficult to go back to somebody that we're not expecting somebody who's be as as liberal as there's not a single cardinal right now that I can tell you that would be more to the left than what Pope Francis is. But then again, you don't know. You know what I mean? Nobody expected this to be at this level. But we'll see. It's a difficult. But just so you know, the Catholic Church has to maintain communications with every other religion, if you want to call it that way, to try to see if there is a possibility of a union, because these are separated churches, and they separated at some point from the Catholic Church. If you're a Christian and you're not a Catholic, Roman Catholic, at some point you separated yourself from the
Mhm.
Catholic Church. Whether you understand the history of that or not, that's a fact. It's not an opinion, right? You can go through history. So the Catholic Church has maintained communications with Greek Orthodox, with the Russian Orthodox, with every single one of the churches that is not in alignment to. Right now, the fact is some of the churches are saying no different than the reason why the Anglican Church and the Catholic Church couldn't become once again, even though they were very close to becoming one again. Once the Anglican Church started to promote to ordain priests, women priests, or women to the priesthood, that's a non-negotiable. You know what I mean? They so that union was not able to take place because of that. This action alone is already saying that, because the Orthodox Church is more traditional, right? It's saying we can't go along with this. This is not something that we are not going to participate in.
I have a question for you specifically, because for me, the way that I look at it is it seems like Cardinal Fernandez,
Mhm.
right, found, like, let's call it a loophole, right? Because the
Mhm.
whole thing is, well, it doesn't look like a wedding. It is not a wedding. Your blessing is in each individual. Therefore, why not just kind of like bless him in the closet, which I'm totally not okay with, by the way. I've been in the closet. I don't want to be in the closet. That's why I don't need that validation. Here's the thing, though. For me, I look at it and it's like lines are being blurred right now. And what comes to question it for me is, okay, what other line do you see? Because I see this as from my perspective, but I haven't studied it. I don't necessarily, I'm not connected at all. What are some lines that you believe that could also be blurred just by this step that is being taken, and what is the implication that it would have?
Let me put it this way: if the idea was to bless an individual who is a sinner or not a sinner, Alexis Smith walks into the church and tells the priest, Father, I'm here seeking for your blessing. And he will immediately, asking, hopefully, maybe asking a question or two, and asking to be in a good relationship with God, and will give him a blessing, go on your merry way. Essentially, what some people are arguing, if that was the idea, then the document was not needed, because that's something that the church was already
Already
doing.
happening.
If you,
Right.
Lorena Pernalete, looking into however you, if the hardcore biker looking lesbian decided to walk into and tell the priest, Father, I am looking for your blessing, make no mistake about it. The overwhelming amount of priests out there will be willing to give that blessing to that individual. Now, the document goes on to, when you're promoting something that is not really right, and you start coming up with a lot of rules and okay, listen, you cannot be by the altar. You're not supposed to be holding hands. It's not supposed to look like you're blessing a union. It's that I want you to look at the amount of pictures that are already circulating in front of the altar, holding hands, precisely everything that it says that it was not supposed to do. So, what to the question that you're asking is like, where is the line, or how does it become? Well, people are going to take it to whatever level, and they're gonna say that they're just following, in accordance to the recommendations of the church itself, that they're not breaking any rules, they're not breaking any law. So this is just taking us into a step that essentially, to be quite honest with you, I don't know if the ultimate idea is going to be to do the full blessing of the union. If the ultimate idea is that, again, this is potentially creating
Well,
is essentially what this movement connected to Pope Francis, and everybody who is connected to who's in alignment to how he operates, is essentially saying, almost in a very Protestant, very Lutheran way, that it's more important to just believe in Christ and be happy, believe in that happy Christ that loves everybody and love everything, forgetting that Christ is coming back to judge, right? Forgetting that Christ asked people to sin no more, forgetting that Christ died on the cross precisely for the forgiveness
Things like
of the thing, right? And so there's a lot to unpack about this whole essentially trying to kill a traditional movement. Guys, look at the churches today. You know what I mean? You can look at the churches that were built 200-300 years ago compared to churches that we're building today. You know what I mean? Again, it's almost like they're trying to remove everything and anything that is essentially Catholic, which is
well,
a
and that's where my question was going, because I wasn't even thinking about going into the altar and stuff like that. I'm just thinking about a question of where, like, for example, the Catholic Church is very clear about abortion. Will there be blurred lines there? Because I believe like there are certain things that will just open a can of worms. Because once again, I'll always say it: the moment that you're not very clear about your values and principles, things get compromised. It's where people get hurt. And so I don't know. I was just wondering, from your perspective, what that would even look like if it could bleed out into different topics as well.
birth control, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was not allowed by the church until probably, I don't know, 30 years ago, where it started to say, okay, listen, and why did they started to say that? Again, a lot of this green movement, population control, the fact that we have some areas where the poverty is so unbelievably harsh that maybe it's not. I mean, I promise you that the reasons were never really good reasons. You know what I mean? And today we pay the consequences of. And again, we spoke about this, guys. Some of you because you've been close to some of the conversations that we have. This is all the results of the changes that came out of Vatican II. A lot of the traditional movement, what they still fighting today is those changes that happened 70 years ago. Then now is your question, how far is it going to go? Nobody expected for us to be having this conversation today.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's just moving in a certain direction. And Alexi was 100% right when he said, I don't see this as something that's going to stop. For the first time, guys, people that I know that have been probably some of the best Catholics that I know are literally saying, I am second guessing as to whether or not I can remain as a Roman Catholic or I need to become an Orthodox out of the many Orthodox churches.
Well,
That's we'll see what the consequences are. But, with that being said, everybody, if you got some value from this conversation, please do share, like, comment. With that being said, everybody, guys, great seeing you. Thank you so much for this conversation today. Right. Take care, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.